The book is your mechanism for putting the information out there. The hook is the emotion, and the cook, it's about you as the author.
Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who address the challenges and best practices to deliver your message effectively. That might be one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok.
My guest today is Judy Baker. Here's 3 facts that I think you should know about Judy. 1, Judy believes that marketing is a conversation. And that's something she learned working with Robert Mondavi, who is the one who revolutionized wine in North America. 2, she's building an author brand, she says, is like gardening. First you plan, then you nurture, and then it grows. And 3, she began mentoring authors in 2011, serving as president of the Bay Area Independent Publishers Association. Today, she is president of Redwood Writers. That's the largest branch of the California Writers Club. Judy Baker, welcome to Your Intended Message.
Thank you so much, George. I appreciate your attention to detail and this opportunity to share with authors what they need to know so they can have a more successful book launch, author career, and business.
And Judy, I imagine for book authors, one of the things that they need to learn is attention to detail, not only in writing and producing the book, but especially in marketing and promoting the book, because it's the little things that they need to do along the way. I'm guessing tell me if I'm right or tell me wrong.
Well, you are totally right. And when you think about what is your intended message with your book, you need to pay attention to, are you speaking the language of the people you want to reach? Because if you don't have the right, well, I've got some mistakes that people often make, and I'll just share this, make it a little low tech. One of them is you don't have a mailing list. So you're not speaking to the right people, and you're not gathering the information you need to help people know about you and help you grow. And your book cover, if it's not related to your intended message and it isn't clear and easy to grasp quickly, people aren't getting it. The title of the book, sometimes people get really clever and they blow it because they got clever rather than direct, and the wrong price. If you're doing a business book, it may be able to sell at a premium price, but you still need to look at what else is out there, and the wrong category. Think about this. If you tuned into your intended message today and you thought you were going to get cooking tips, you probably would be disappointed. So you've got to pay attention to all of those things in order to have a congruent, easy conversation with your audience.
Judy, and I can see the relevance of all of those 5 mistakes. The one that jumped out at me, that grabbed my attention, is the wrong title. And a book author, a business book author, might look at the marketplace and see a best-selling fiction book, and they have clever names that don't really tell you what the book's about. And a lot of movies are the same way. For example, Shawshank Redemption. What's that about? Somebody's getting redeemed. It doesn't tell you what it's about. But there's a lot of books out there with silly, clever names. And I'm looking at my bookcase here, and yeah. I know there's a marketing book here, which I guess probably didn't sell a lot of books because it's a marketing book. And it's called You Can't Be Everywhere. Well, okay, that might sound clever, but it doesn't tell me what I'm going to get. What's in it for me? I know I can't be anywhere, so what? What's your point?
Well, you brought up a good point because that would make a great subtitle. But if your intention is it's about your brand or how you show up or how you make an impression on people, you want to look at a title that is, well, and these days this is even more important. Most of the time people are not walking into a physical bookstore. They're looking for you online. And so a short title, 1 or 2 words, is far better. And then you can have a humongous subtitle. You could have, I think it's up to like 30 words in the subtitle. So amplify what that book is about, but grab people's attention with something that is very important to them and tells them what they're going to get out of it. You're completely right on that. Someone I just interviewed recently has a book out called Raise Your Fees Without Losing Clients. Well, yeah, you know immediately what that's about. Now, that's a little bit longer title than I would typically say, but because she knows her audience really well, she came up with the title after she was working on the book. And that's the other thing. You probably are going to have a working title. Great. But what you wind up at the end might be something different. And you can find out if it resonates with people because you ask them. And that's another thing authors often do that can hold them back. You write on your own, but at some point you need to collaborate with editors, with your book designer. You need to interact with the people you intend the book for and get their feedback. And if you've ever looked at any of the successful book funding campaigns, crowdfunding, Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you're going to see that people are saying, oh, here's my ideas. What do you think? And do you have any suggestions? And if, here are my possible covers. So when you get engagement going on as early as possible, that's fabulous. But sometimes you don't know until after. And if you're self-published, it's a lot easier to change your book cover and your book title. But even if you are working with a team, listen to what other people say. We don't see ourselves the way others do. We don't see our books the way other people do. So we need to ask questions.
And Judy, that book title, Raise Your Fees Without Losing Clients, what I noticed is that there are 2 parts to that. And what I saw, one offers hope and the other one suppresses fear.
Exactly.
So there's an emotional appeal. My question is, does a title need to have an emotional appeal to be successful?
Well, George, you bring up a really good point. When we engage people on an emotional level, which is really where people make their decisions, then they are going to put themselves in your shoes. So that is a key component because we rationalize our decisions with facts and figures, but we make our decisions from, well, I'll tell you what I've got on my desk. My little armadillo.
An armadillo.
Yeah. And so we share something in common with the armadillo. We have that part of our brain, the lizard brain, and that's where we really make a lot of our decisions. And emotionally, when we create that connection, it's much stronger than if I say, oh yeah, I can see that I'm going to have all of these, numbers in line. That comes afterwards. So the more you can hook somebody, well, my friend Michael Larson, who developed, he was the founder of the San Francisco Writers Conference, but he also has written books on how to write your book proposal, which is a marketing plan. He says it's the book, the hook, and the cook. And I think that is, if you remember that, the book is your mechanism for putting the information out there. The hook is the emotion, and the cook, it's about you as the author. And I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I also feel as an author, and because I specialize with nonfiction authors, it's your whole ball of wax. It's you, your book, and your business. I don't separate them out. They should work together. And being authentic means being real in all the arenas where you show up.
Judy, when a client comes to you, do they come to you while they're still working on their book, or after it's been produced and sitting in their garage for a few months?
Well, sometimes people will come to me before the book is written, which is ideal. But I've learned over the years, most of the time, one of the things that trips people up, they focus on building up to the launch, and they don't think about after the launch. And like you said, they could have books sitting in the garage. Now, with print on demand, that happens less and less often, but it's not a long forgotten dream that people don't have inventory. And I feel very strongly, if you've invested your time, resources, and have written this fabulous book, it doesn't expire like a carton of milk. That content is evergreen. And I work with authors to help them continue to use that book as long as they want to connect with people with that message. And that could be 20, 25 years, longer. I know people who've built their entire business on a single book and then maybe some variations on it. So that's really possible, that when people come to me, it's usually when they have written the book, they launch the book, and then crickets. So now I'm going to help them look at what information is inside that book that they can pop out there repeatedly to get eyeballs and conversations going.
Now, Judy, I'm guessing there are at least two types of authors who come to you. There are authors who have the book as the core of their business, and there are authors who are established in their business, and the book becomes an add-on. Perhaps it's a part of a marketing tool. Perhaps it becomes part of a gift to clients. Is there different approaches or different emphasis for those two channels?
Typically, I'm going to say this, that if someone is in the business of being an author, unlikely we are going to connect, because that's their main source of income. It won't be impossible, but that's a very different path than when you are a business owner and you're using the book as part of your business. Then your focus is on serving your clients. And a lot of times, a business owner will write a book to put into a container, if you will, all of their best stuff. And then they can use it, as you said, to share it with their clients. They can, you just reminded me of this. Giving away your book can actually earn you more money. As funny as that might sound. But when you give your book away, think about this. How do you feel when you get a gift? That's pretty amazing. And you're probably more likely to read it because you got it as a gift. And Jim Horan, who was the founder of the One-Page Business Plan, he wrote that book. And when he wrote it, it was very funny because people kept telling him to write that. And he said, I can't write a book. And people said, no, you came up with this great idea, do it. over the course of his career, he did something that I loved and highly recommend doing. If he was speaking, whether it was on a physical stage or a virtual stage, he would say, "Who would like a copy of my book?" And so people would raise their hand, and he always gave away 2 copies. And he would say, "Here's one for you, and here's one for you to give to someone you feel would benefit from this book." By doing that, he created kind of an informal contract, if you will, with that person, and he spread the word. And that was part of his marketing budget. And I have other examples like that. When you give your stuff away, you're not eating into your profits. People feel an obligation. They also are now looking at your material in a different way, and they're looking at you in a different way. And it's really those relationships that make a difference. And giving it away, you are now broadening your reach. Most business owners are looking at the book not as just the book sales. They're looking at, how do I get speaking engagements? How do I get on podcasts? How do I get booked at a conference? And so being generous first is always the best road to getting what you want by being kind and helpful.
I suppose some service providers, whether they're a consultant, banker, lawyer, accountant, if they publish a book, that gives them a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. I think I just recently read this, that if you asked a group of people, do you want to write a book? Over 90% will say yes, but only 2% actually write and publish a book. Now, lots of people write books, but they'll never see the light of day. Publishing means sharing it, making it public. And when authors remember, that's the rule about publishing, but it's also, how do people find out about the book? You have to tell them. You need to share the information. Just because you've published a book, it's available for sale, it's a rare instance when that book just blows up because it suddenly showed up. If you look at how people discover information, it's because it's shared. And you want to get as many people sharing the fact that you're an expert as possible.
So, Judy, in promoting books today, now that we've got the internet and especially social media, is it automatic to just go ahead and put the book on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and then you just sit back and watch the orders come in?
Well, yes and no. When you are speaking to your audience, you need to know, where do they hang out? And even though a lot of authors are gravitating towards TikTok, and you probably heard the term book talk. If your audience is under 30, awesome. But a lot of very successful authors aren't going there. They're looking at using LinkedIn because it is a business platform. We're talking business to business. We're also looking at a lot more video is coming into play, which is why TikTok is so popular. But there are other ways to use video. You need to be where your audience is, hanging out with them in the places they're hanging out. And it isn't just online. You need to look at your relationships offline as well, which is why building your email list is still the number one way for you to communicate with people, because in your inbox, you're speaking to that individual. You've got their full attention. On social media, it's like distraction time. There's all this stuff going on. But you still do want to use social media strategically, but you don't have to be on every platform in order to succeed. And that's, I think, what often gets people stopped. Authors go, oh, I can't do all that. But if you focus on one channel and get really good at engaging with people there, you can always replicate what you're doing on other channels, but don't try to do everything everywhere all the time 24/7. That's crazy making.
Judy, when you're promoting a book online, is it a matter of just keep showing the cover and maybe a review and saying, buy this book now, hurry up, click below?
No. That should be very small part of your strategy. Instead of saying buy my book, being a guest on a show like this, your intended message, makes a lot more sense because people get to know you. They get a sense of who you are. And, Ivan Meisner was right. Know, like, and trust. When people have the ability to sample you, they get to hear what you are about, how you help people, and they trust you. If they like you, they will go and buy your book. But nobody likes to be sold. And I think, getting back to, what we talked about at the very, very beginning, when I worked for Robert Mondavi, this is something he said and totally believed and embodied. Everyone who worked at the winery was in sales. Everybody's in sales. But that meant, how are they serving the guests who were coming through the doors? How were people being treated? And the relationships. And that is so critical to remember. So you're always in sales, but you don't have to be pitchy. You don't have to hammer people over the head, but you do want to make it easy for them to find your book. So being sure that you give them a resource like, well, I'm going to give you a great tip. Draft 2 Digital. That's draft and the number 2 digital. They created something called a universal book link, where if you go to books, the number 2, read, then you can create a landing page and all the places that your book is available that you want people to know about, you can check off. So just like you have a unique URL for your website, you can have a unique URL for your book purchasing, and then people can select where they want to buy that book, because there are some people who are never going to buy it from one of the big sellers, but they might go on one of the places like Bookshop or IndieBound or a different retailer. So if you make it simple, then that one link is all you have to give out, and then people can find you. So that's the other thing. You want to make it easy. And you can put links on your website for how to buy your book. But this is so cool with the books to read. Then you're not having to change all this information all the time. You only have to go to one place if you decide you don't want to have a retailer or you want to add somebody else. It's one time and one time only, so you're good to go.
Books to read. Bookstoread.com?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's and I didn't say this. It's a free service.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So if you have a book, it better be there. And if it's not there, well, what's stopping you?
Exactly, because it's based on the ISBN number, which again is a unique identifier for that book.
Judy, you told us some of the mistakes that people made.
Yes.
What are some of the best practices that you've seen people do? And sometimes it's just one strategy, one tactic that just works so tremendously well.
Well, one of the best strategies I've seen is creating companion pieces to your book. Some authors are now creating a limited series podcast where they're, sharing information about the book. And that makes it a little more manageable. So you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to, because George, doing a podcast, it's a lot of work.
You bet.
But if you say, okay, I'm going to do a series based on my book, and maybe I'm going to go chapter by chapter or just part of it, then you're revealing information, but you're inviting people in. So, that's really great. The other strategy that seems to be very effective is not only audio, but video. So if you are a nonfiction author and you serve your clients, there's probably something you're doing that's included in your book that you could do a short video about and put that out there. And this is another tip. If you're doing video, yes, put it up on YouTube, because YouTube is one of the largest search engines, but you want to make sure that video in its native form, if you're going to use it on social, upload it in its original form onto, say, LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, because there's a bias on all of those rented platforms for native information. They don't want you going out the door. They want to keep you on the platform. But you still have your video in all of those places, and you can include it wherever you want to share it.
And so in the video, I suppose it's not about the author saying, well, I'm going to read my book to you, page 1, page 2. No, it's got to be a little bit more interesting than that. What works well?
Well, if you did a case study and you illustrate how someone came in with a problem and then how you were able to solve it, that is an intriguing video. That's going to make me go, oh, I can see myself here. And sometimes you're saying, oh, I was in that position, and here's what happened. Being vulnerable is amazing. When people see you're not this kind of perfect person, they're more likely to go, oh, you get it. You know what I'm feeling. You've been there, and you were able to overcome this, and so can I. And I want to work with you because you know what you're talking about. It's not made up. It's real stuff.
And Judy, when we talk about nonfiction, there's a lot of areas that could fall within. It could be a business book. It could be a self-development book. It could be a cooking book. It could be how to look after your garden, how to look after your pets. But most of them, I guess, are geared to some sort of, here's a goal. Here's what this book will help you do. I'm guessing that's what we're looking at.
Most of the time that is true. And you did bring up a good point, George. Memoir used to be kind of looked down upon, but there's been a shift, because a lot of memoirs now are not just about, poor me and it's, my whole life story. It's about, how did I overcome a particular challenge? And memoir in and of itself it's a snapshot. It's not everything. So if the memoir I'm working on is about my journey with ovarian cancer, and it's not going to tell all of the details, but it is going to tell what I learned, what I didn't know, what I wish I knew, and where to go look for some resources. So it's a quick way to circumvent some of the overwhelm that happens to people. And memoir from a business standpoint can do the same thing. It could be that you encountered a particular challenge, and then this is what you did so that someone else doesn't have to fall in that same pothole. So yeah, there is a wide range of books. And it's funny that you brought up cookbooks, because you would think a cookbook and business, what the heck? But my friend Judy Dang's book is coming out this fall, and it's called Perfect Enough. Her message is about how Asian women internalized this feeling that they had to be perfect, and I mean really perfect, and that if you weren't at the very pinnacle, you weren't good enough. She loves to bake. So she actually does have fun recipes in there, because that's her happy place when she's trying to de-stress. So you want to reveal your personality in your book. I think that's a good point to remember. If cooking is important to you, then yeah, maybe that's going to be in your business book. You never know what's going to be that fun way that you express yourself that other people resonate with.
It's funny you mentioned personality. I was reading the book Eats, Shoots, and Leaves.
Oh, yes.
and whoever thought that a book about punctuation would be so successful? But I'm reading the book and the expressions, and I'm thinking, I like this. She's wacky. I like her.
Oh, you're right. And grammar has there's a renaissance in grammar too. People are interested because I know for myself, I had very little grammar in my formal education. I had a whole semester. I learned more in my Spanish class about English grammar than I ever did in my regular classes. And consequently, my writing wasn't as good as it could be. It wasn't as clear. It wasn't as effective. And a few years ago, one of my colleagues suggested using an AI app called Grammarly. And I started using it, and I went, oh, now I'm getting it. And so it started training me. And then a few years after that, I learned about another similar program called Pro Writing Aid, which goes into, they're very, very similar. And I've improved my writing. It's improved my speaking too, because now I can see what I was doing that was causing confusion. So yeah, I love grammar. I think it's endlessly fascinating. And I'm a big fan of Grammar Girl podcast, because she brings in funny examples. And just like you said, Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. What? It is great. It is fabulous.
Judy, for people who would like to, for authors, nonfiction authors or emerging nonfiction authors, if they'd like to learn more about how you can help them, I believe you offer a 30-minute mentoring session, no charge, and the place to find that is at, and tell me if I got this right, bookbuzzaudit.com.
Correct.
And listeners can find that, and you can find that in the description below for a 30-minute session with Judy about how to get your book, how to get in the right mindset and get your book out there working for you the way it should be. Judy, as before we wrap up, if you could sit down and spend time with either a new author or an about to be author or someone who's maybe got books sitting in the garage, and you could give them 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice to get movement with their books and value from it, what might be that 1, 2, or pieces of advice? Maybe it's something you said already.
Well, I brought up the mailing list, and that might seem a little intimidating, because maybe, the only people on your mailing list, you've got 0, or maybe you've got just your family or a few people you worked with. It doesn't matter where you start. It's the getting started and having fun with it. You're inviting people into your world, and you can gather emails in a physical setting. You can gather them online. You can have a form on your website, but you can also put those forms and invitations out there in the world with an enticement to get on that list. You don't want to say, oh, just sign up for my email list. I just saw a book for pre-sale and I loved what the author did. They said, oh, sign up for a free chapter of my book. Okay, that was great. But they did it with a video.
Oh.
I know. And I went, oh, and the video was the introduction to the book. So it wasn't, the guts of the book, but it gave me a good sense of what that book was about. The video was from a third party endorsing the book because somebody else wrote that intro. So that social proof, we are far more likely to believe somebody who we trust telling us about something to buy it than we are if it's an ad. So giving away a free chapter, maybe it's a worksheet, something related to your book that entices people to give their email, because we're pretty jaded. We don't want another newsletter in my inbox. But if you tell people honestly what the setup is on your email, how frequently they should expect something, that you observe the rule of, I'm going to say 90% give away good stuff, 10% selling. Every once in a while, you're going to ask people, invite, again, that permission, invite people to check out your book, invite people to buy your book. That works a lot better than sell. And ads can help you to a degree, but organic is always better. So just doing a little bit at a time. So if you say, I'm committed, I'm going to do a newsletter once a month. I'm going to put that out there, make it available. Doing something consistently is better than doing something once in a while. So posting, this is one I didn't share. If you went through your book, could you find 10 or 12 quotes that you want to share? And then turn those into visuals that you can put out on your social channels. That will help propel your book into people's consciousness. And the nice thing about that is you can repurpose your content over and over again. Because if I see your stuff today, it's not likely I'm going to see it the next time I go on that social channel. That's always rushing, it's going by, so you're not going to annoy people. So start small, be consistent, and just try stuff and have fun.
Have fun promoting your book and try stuff. Start small. My guest today is Judy Baker, reminding you that you need the book, the hook, and the cook.
If you like what you heard, remember to like, comment, and share this podcast. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.